Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of fantasy books under 400 pages. I've done a part 1 to this, so I'll have that link down below, and then if you have any of your own suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. That way there are more options available to anybody who comes to this video. But regardless, I wanted to have this for anybody who maybe needs a break from some of the longer fantasy books, or maybe you're trying to get into fantasy and you're a little bit intimidated by some of the tomes. So without further ado, jumping right into it, the first two that I'm going to recommend are actually books 1 and 2 in a trilogy, and the trilogy is called The Queens of Renthea. Book 1 is Queen of Blood, and book 2 is The Reluctant Queen. These are considered adult fantasy, but they're definitely very accessible for people coming out of maybe young adult fantasy or just getting into fantasy. The setting itself is the star of the show in this series. The setting is made up of this forest that has all of these spirits, and their goal is to protect the forest. And in order to do this, they end up going after human beings because human beings who live within this forest naturally end up harming it. And so humans have found a particular magic user among them who can hold the spirits in check. The spirits are necessary in order for the forest to thrive and to function. However, they obviously don't want to have entire groups of people killed by these spirits. So there's this very delicate balance, and this delicate balance is put into question when very quickly you're saying that something is occurring that is angering the spirits and allowing them to attack humans unchecked, which should not be happening because the current magic user is still in power, she is still alive, so there's a little bit of a mystery element to as to what's occurring with the magic, and you get it for less than 400 pages. It's very nice. The next suggestion is a duology, and both of the books in the duology are under 400 pages, and that would be Blade of Secrets and Master of Iron. These are young adult fantasy, and I definitely think they lean a little bit on the younger side. I find myself absolutely in love with these books. There's just something about them that just feels so cozy and uplifting and adventurous and fun. There's silly moments, but there's really heartwarming moments as well. And I think the author does a fantastic job of portraying the main character's anxiety, which is something I think a lot of people can relate to regardless of age, but it's especially important for younger individuals to see themselves, I think, in the heroine of the story. To see someone who has anxiety like them can be a hero as well. So the setup for the story is we have a main character who has this anxiety and she kind of very much keeps to herself. She really only has her sister, and she's a blacksmith, and she likes isolation, she likes being alone, she likes her routine, and she has magical powers that allow her to put something into the weapons that she is creating. She has been commissioned to make a magical weapon for somebody of importance. However, she discovers that that individual might not have the best of intentions. So now our main character has to go on the run with this weapon. Her sister comes with her, as well as a couple of other individuals. And the camaraderie and the banter with the characters, the way that they look out for each other, the way they irritate each other, I just couldn't get enough of it. I absolutely loved it. And what's nice is not only are the books themselves short, but it's a duology. So there's only 2 books. It's not a huge commitment, and it's a lot of fun. After that, we have 2 books by the same author, which would be Ariadne and Elektra. As you can probably guess, these are rooted in Greek mythology, one of which follows more so the women in the story of Troy. It's more of like the women who are, quote, left behind. And you're seeing the way that the actions of the men during this war, the impact it has on the women, the way society and religion or beliefs, culture, the way it can shape certain individuals, the way trauma can shape certain individuals. I think that's a huge part of Elektra's story. And as you also might expect, it's quite the tragedy. With Ariadne, this is one where I found myself so irritated by the characters. However, I thought that the author did a great job in showing the difference between somebody who knows that their time is limited, they only have so much time to live, versus the gods who have more time and are more flippant and more careless. And even when they have these moments where they feel very human-like, at the end of the day, they are capable of awful things because it's just another day for them and it's going to pass and eventually they'll probably forget about it. And that proves to be very, very frustrating. But I also found that I kind of respected the way that we analyzed this old story and we brought it to a point where we're diving deeper into the characters, we're diving deeper into their relationships with each other, their motivations, as well as their relationships to various gods. After that, we have one that is quite fun, and it's very, very sweet, and that would be An Enchantment of Ravens. This is actually a standalone, so it's just one book, which is nice. And with this particular story, we're following a young woman who is living among the humans. However, they live very close to the world of the Fae. So they actually interact with the Fae fairly often. And our main character has an extraordinary skill when it comes to painting. And so the Fae often pay her to paint them, paint portraits of them, those sorts of things. And you have a very notable figure among the Fae who decides they want their portrait done by this young woman. And in this time, they're getting to know each other, they're beginning to care for one another, and she sees everything there is to him. She almost sees into his soul, and she paints that into his portrait, and with that comes very human emotions, things of sadness or feelings of loneliness. And when his portrait is revealed to the other courts, they see this now as a weakness in him, and they see this as how he's not actually fit to have the significance in their society that he does. And so they're using this against him. He thinks that perhaps she has been tasked with this, or that she did it on purpose. And so now she's whisked off to the Fae land, and then very interesting things occur once she gets there. It's very whimsical. It's great for the fall. It has so much atmosphere to it. The writing is quite beautiful, but very accessible. And again, it's a sweet, fun little fairy tale type of story. It's not going to have maybe the depth that something like Ariadne and Elektra do. It's not going to break your heart or be really sad like those ones. It's sort of just the perfect cozy up on the couch kind of a read. After that, we have the Bridge Kingdom and the Traitor Queen. So these are 2 books within a series, but these first 2 books are essentially the completion of the characters' arcs within that story. And then the 3rd book actually follows some other characters who you do see in the first 2 books, but they almost get their own stories. So if you see that there's a book 3, if you see there's a book 4, that's technically true, but you can definitely treat this as if it's a duology. So that's really nice. If you want to continue on, if you like the world enough, you want to get to know some of the other characters, you have that option when you're done with these first 2. But these first 2 are both under 400 pages, and you follow 2 main characters. One is a woman who has been trained her whole life to learn how to spy and get information from the kingdom that she is going to be married into. And the kingdom that she's going to be married into, her future husband is very suspicious of his soon-to-be wife. He expects there to be something. He expects her to be wanting to pass information back and to be a spy. So when they do marry, it's absolute enemies to lovers at the extreme. They do not trust one another. She's trying to get him to open up because obviously she's trying to get information. He doesn't want to do that. And then she's realizing maybe some of the information she's been given about him and his kingdom might not all be entirely true, and so she's starting to care for his people, and she wants to help them, and she's second-guessing everything she's ever learned. And then he's seeing that in her and realizing maybe she's not just some spy who's supposed to report information back for political gain. So you see the 2 of them starting to trust each other, you're seeing them work together, but then you also see them having their doubts. And I think it's a realistic enemies to lovers and marriage of convenience. I think if you like those 2 tropes, that alone would be enough to give this a try. But I actually found this was a fantastic blend of both political fantasy and fantasy romance. So if you're someone who likes either of those 2 things, I would say give this one a try, pick it up. I think you'll ultimately quite like it. Last for today is going to be Rey Bear and Redemptor. This is a duology, and this story follows a young woman named Tarisai who has been tasked to kill someone that she does not want to kill, and she can't really resist this because she is being compelled by magic. And the very morbid and dark side of this, beyond just the task itself, is the fact that it's her mother who is compelling her to do this. So there's this very twisted, dark side to her relationship with her mother, and she's becoming friends with this person that she is supposed to kill. She does not want to do this, and so she's trying to find a way to fight back against this magic. But there are also a lot of other things going on, and there's a lot of other characters that we're introduced to. One of my favorite aspects about Rey Bear and Redemptor is the sense of found family and the focus on friendship. A lot of times in fantasy, we find characters, there's a pretty big emphasis on romantic relationships, which I know that those are obviously important and something a lot of us like to see in stories, But it was really fantastic to see a book that, while it did have a nice romantic subplot going on, it really was the friendship that I thought stood out a lot more. And the amount that you have to learn to trust other people, the amount that you have to be okay being vulnerable, to let yourself sometimes be taken care of, and to take care of others, and to not try to bear burdens on your own. There's a lot of really powerful themes in this series. The second one in particular has a theme that I think was done exceptionally well, which is how to balance taking care of yourself when there are so many other people that need your help, and how do you enjoy life knowing that there are other people who are hurting. And I think that is something so many of us have wrestled with before. So if you like stories that have these deeper themes, that have the friendship, this one I would highly recommend. It is young adult fantasy, so the world building isn't going to be quite as huge, it's not as daunting, and there's only 2 books, and both of them are on the shorter side. That's it for some fantasy books under 400 pages. Like I said at the beginning, I'll have part 1 of this linked in the description bar down below, and again, feel free to leave your own recommendations. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.